we get anywhere, if there's any venue. Yeah, as you said. Yeah, can I just say something about it, Tony? Is that my feelings about humanity changed from before the verdict to afterwards, because I was thinking, oh God, they all look like Zion. I was looking at them like they all look like Zionists. And then
No, no,
when
no.
they said you were innocent, I looked at them all totally differently. And it's a bit like a general election where, you know, it was like a good general election result. It was it's incredible. I mean, what do you feel a nervousness? Did you feel nervous about them before you saw? Did you look at them and did you think, oh, these look like they might not like me? What was your assessment when you first saw them?
I saw them really as a blank piece of paper on which I had to write, and it could go either way. And I had to engage them as human beings. And as I continued, I noticed they were becoming more attentive and listening. And there was a couple of young women in the front row who were straining to hear almost. And I think I engaged them when I pointed out that Israel was committing these atrocities against children, against those who had no means of self defense, and that Israeli soldiers were targeting children. I mean, Dr. Nick Maynard was saying that children came in clusters to the hospitals. One day they would have bullets in the head. Next day, smashed kneecaps. The next day, boys who had bullets fired in their testicles, that kind of thing. These were the army, the IDF, was targeting children because they're the future generation of the Palestinians. And that is a Nazi mentality. And that's what Israel has today, a Nazi mentality. When they call them human animals, as I pointed out, that was what Himmler said about Jews. And they can't see it. The reason is because they actually despise the Jewish diaspora. And again, one of the foundational values of Zionism is negation of the diaspora, a hatred of everything it represents. And yet, the best traditions of being Jewish lie in the diaspora. And it's no accident that all the great figures, Freud, Marx, Hannah Arendt, Einstein, etc., they turned away from Zionism because they saw it as really just a reflection of European racism and anti-Semitism. Uh, and that's what Zionism
Can
is.
I just come in and say that what you've just replied to my question was rather like in the court. You really go for a bit more than the question. You can't you
You have
can't
to.
not say
You
more
have
than
to.
the question. Like your lawyer, your barrister said you're loquacious to the judge. Thought that might humour her, but she didn't look that humoured.
No,
Uh,
no, she had no sense of humour. None
and
whatsoever.
then he said, "Can you try and answer yes or no?" And then you didn't. I think you had one chance and you didn't do it. Oh, by the way, look, I don't mean that anyone looks like a Zionist. I mean that in my distorted thinking, I was concerned that it's just you get fearful. That's how I was fearful.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
believe
I
anyone looks like a
understand that.
Zionist.
But when they trooped in, I mean, I was quite hopeful. They looked pretty average, normal people, and
Yeah.
we should be able to win over that kind of person. We shouldn't be afraid of it. And I tailored my speech accordingly.
Exactly. That's what I thought. They did look like just normal people. It made me think
Yeah,
if we put the arguments out there, then there's no way the government could continue this stuff
yeah.
without these. Anyway, I've got to move on to another issue. I talked to you before we knew the verdict. I said I'd like to do your top 10 blogs because I was thinking before you get locked up, I think people should see some of your corpus. And what I thought was I can't really choose because how many blogs have you? You've written 3,500 blogs. I wasn't
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
do it overnight, so I thought the best thing to do is ask you for your top 10 viewed blogs. So these are the top 10. So I'm going to show them and ask you to make a little commentary on them. It won't be too long, but I think it will show
Sure.
the diversity of your blogs as well. They're not all one subject. I thought I'd start with this one actually, which was uh, your blog about your arrest, and this was quoted in the court. I think they quoted this blog in the court on Wednesday, 7 a.m. I was arrested by the Sussex Stasi for a tweet in support of the Palestinian resistance to genocide. I think they thought if they said the word Stasi, it would show you were not a good person or something. Um, yeah, and Mick Napier is in there as well, so that the two of you had that, and that you've both been acquitted, or not even. He
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
go to trial, did he?
No, no, Mick has been prosecuted so many times he's lost count. He's an indefatigable fighter, and yeah, I mean, I was arrested 6:30 in the morning for a tweet. If that's not Orwellian, what is? So the Stasi was the kind of person or organization that George Orwell was writing about.
Yeah.
1984.
All right. Well, I'm going to show you that number 10. This is number 10 of Tony's blogs. Destroying the myths of Israel's birth, the mass gang rape and murder of an Arab child. This was in 2017 on the 8th of July. Do you remember writing that blog?
Yeah, it still sends shivers down my spine. A young girl, maybe 9 years old. She was a Bedouin girl in the Negev, and she was captured by the Israeli army. This was 1948, and she was kept in a kind of hut, I guess, by three companies, a division, I think, of the Israeli army. And she was raped by every man, as far as I'm aware. And she was used in horrific ways. And then, when they'd had their way, they executed her and buried her body. And no one served any jail time for that. And this was in 1948. These were the labor Zionists. Ben Gurion ensured that no one went to jail. And anyone who pretends that Israel today is any different from what it was at its birth is sadly mistaken. And this horrific tale only came out relatively recently. And when I read it, I was appalled. It was in Haaretz. Uh, I did a blog on it to just show really how despicable and vile Zionism has been from its birth. It's not the recreation of a new Jewish nation. It is a kind of how do you put it? It is almost a curse that has been put upon Jewish people by this reflection of European racial anti-Semitism, and the treatment of this poor kid, just beggars belief. And no one amongst there must have been maybe 100, 200 men. No one stood up and said, "We can't do this." It's like the lack of integrity and the racism permeated throughout Israeli society from the very start.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sounds very telling at the very beginning that was happening. This is number 9. Uh, Owen Jones, the final betrayal, supporting Zionist apartheid and the Jewish labor movement. This was on 16th of February 2017. You, I have to say, you have fallen out with quite a few other left sort of figures. I guess he was quite an early fallout for you. But what's your view on Owen Jones now? I'm quite interested because he has changed his tune quite a bit since then, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to give him credit, he has stuck to his guns and he has turned against everything Israel's been doing, and he's taken a lot of flack for it. He now knows, I think, better than anyone, that anti Semitism is the weapon that they use to defend the abominable behavior. So I don't know whether he would now see himself as an anti Zionist because we have crossed swords, if you like. But, I mean, I welcome the repentance of the sinner on the road to Damascus when Saul became Paul. as it were. So he now knows that, or he should know that those who were expelled for being anti-Semites, that was a lie. And they were people who were standing up for just basic human principles, nothing more. So, I mean, I think Owen Jones has been on a journey, and he, like many others, once you start to criticize them, they turn the full blast of their bile and vile hatred against people. And Owen Jones has been targeted. And so, yeah, I mean, I've sent him a message saying there's no animosity.
I bet he didn't reply.
He didn't know.
All right. Okay. Well, the next one is this one. We named the gang of Zionists whose purpose is to disrupt Palestinian events in London. This again was in 2017, 9th of December. The thugs and misfits of the neo-Nazi Jewish Defense League, an assorted fascist intent on destroying free speech on Israel and Palestine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There was a
that
gang of them who were going around disrupting Palestine events, attacking people sometimes. They were even going to send a gang down to sort me out, but I got wind of it via someone with police connections, and they were warned off. But yeah, they were going around. Jonathan Hoffman, who seems to have disappeared from the scene now. I haven't heard much of him of late, but there was a group of fascists. But today they don't hide their associations with Tommy Robinson. He's an honored guest of the Israeli government. So they've thrown off the pretense of their alliance with the far right. After all, at their march against anti Semitism, so called, they invited Nigel Farage, Gassim Farage, but didn't invite the only Jewish leader of a political party, Zach Polanski. So Zionism today has shed its social democratic credentials. Because when I was young, uh, and I was moving to the left, I was told go and live on a kibbutz in Israel because that's a socialist experiment. But we now know, of course, the kibbutzim were racially exclusive communities built in raised Arab villages. So all the myths have crumbled, which is, I think, the precursor of the destruction of Zionism itself.
Oh, well, look, your next, I can't remember what number it is now. I've lost count. But anyway, this is the next one. How to deal with benefits medical examinations. I didn't expect this to be in your top 10, but this is from 2012, the 1st of February.
Yeah, well, I mean, what can I say? I mean, there's been this continual war against people who are disabled, suggesting they're malingerers, that we have too many disabled, it's too easy to become disabled, and yet the arms budget increases exponentially, but they're looking for savings from the people who are most vulnerable. So I wrote that article. I don't remember the exact details of it because it is now 14 years since I wrote it. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I was a welfare advisor and a legal advisor at the Unemployed Centre in Brighton. So these were issues which were taking up my time.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Now that this is an interesting story. The framing of Kelvin Hopkins MP. This was in your top five, I think.
yeah,
First, it
yeah,
was anti-Semitism. Now, the Labour right and the BBC's Tory Kunzberg are weaponising sexual harassment. Um,
yeah, yeah.
Somebody alleged that he had been inappropriate sexually with her, a member of his staff, and then he stood down. What would you say? I mean, now it's quite a long time ago. We're talking about 2017 again.
Yeah, he was a very ardent supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, and once again Jeremy failed to defend him. And the woman from I can't remember all the details, but the woman had subsequent to the so-called incidents defended him and not at all claimed that she was a victim of sexual harassment. She was someone who basically, I think, was making it up for her own personal advantage. And we know that sexual harassment has been used against Julian Assange, uh, Karim Khan, and others. So, although, of course, it happens, you also have the kind of rape narrative of Israel on October the 7th, where they weaponize such allegations. And let's remember, allegations of rape were the main charge used against black men in the Deep South before they were lynched. And this is a very powerful emotive thing, the idea that some people, the natives, if you like, are sexual predators from whom white women need to be protected. Kelvin was Irish Republican, and he was a radical on most things apart from abortion. But he was, I think, treated pretty disgracefully, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And this one is something I didn't know anything about. So I'm interested if you remember it. This is 2012. The death agony of Searchlight Anti-Fascist magazine. How Jerry Gable ended up defending racism in the name of anti-fascism. This was one
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
top four. Um, what do you remember of that?
Well, Jerry Gable was the editor of an anti-fascist magazine, but he was also trading information with a special branch and the intelligence services. He was a Zionist. Although he was anti-fascist, he never saw that anti-racism and anti-fascism complement each other, and therefore he defended the Israeli state against all accusations. And that meant he actually attacked anti-fascists within the movement who didn't accord with his own politics. And he he developed in the end a very bad reputation. He was praised by the bourgeois press when he died. I think it was last year, but he went wrong, and Zionism, if you like, undermined everything he believed in. I mean, he was an anti-fascist, but he divorced anti-fascism from the nature of the society and the system we live in, and he forgot that anti-fascism in Britain, when it started, in the Jewish East End, had to confront the state. The police were not our friends. I mean, my dad recognized that. The police were, many of them were supporters of Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists. And unfortunately, Jerry, it still continues today in Hope Not Hate, whereas on the one hand, they're anti-fascist, but on the other hand, they're pro-Zionist. And so they attack people like Chris Williamson, for example, because he stands out and supports the Palestinians. And they have
Mm,
people like that Ruth Smeeth, who, she attacked Mark Wadsworth. She was the main person. She's now Baroness Anderson.
yeah,
So you have this bourgeois anti-fascism, which believes the state can actually fight the fascists, and it can't, because at the end of the day, it gets in bed with people who are attacking the victims of fascism. And so you have this complete cognitive dissonance, I think is the best way to describe it. And Hope Not Hate has come in for such a lot of flack because it supported the anti Semitism witch hunt. And uh, remember that guy? He was a musician, a working class guy who got this
Joe
award.
Solo, Joe
That's
Solo.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then they took it away from him because he supported Chris Williamson. And in the end,
yeah,
it backfired on them because people raised more money than their reward. So Joe could say, fuck you, basically.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, I
that's
remember
what,
that. That was terrible what they did to him.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Now this one is this is kind of still relevant because this is 2016, so it's nearly 10 years ago, 19th October 2016. Open letter to John Mann MP from a 90-year-old Jewish Dr. Glatt. John
yes,
Mann
yes,
MP is now being promoted to Lord Mann. And
yep.
what do you remember of this letter?
Oh, well, Dr. Glatt, who's Jewish, a Jewish doctor from Sunderland, and he's now died, I'm afraid. But he was opposed to the whole anti-Semitism nonsense. He saw through it, and he was quite clear about his support for anti-Zionism. And John Mann suggested that someone in Momentum, I think it was Alan Madison, but I can't remember. The details are in the article, suggested that he hadn't written the letter, that someone else had written the letter. And Dr. Glatt was absolutely furious at this and wrote a letter. And then John Mann, who'd put a post up on Facebook, took it down as a result of that blog, because I reprinted the letter from Dr. Glatt, who was sharp as a button. He was 90 years old, but he wasn't having it. And Mann was being his usual disingenuous self.
Yeah. Oh God. Anyway, we've talked about him a few times.
Yes.
This one I didn't know about. Well, it maybe slipped my memory. 2012, Zionists tried to avoid another Ahava-like humiliation. Israeli shop Soda Stream, EcoStream, opens in Brighton to large picket.
Yep.
You remember
Yep.
that?
Oh, I do remember that. It was a 2 year battle. Unfortunately, I had to retire from it because I was suffering from liver disease, and I had a liver transplant in the end in 2015. But they were quite violent, vicious, nasty Zionists, and literally, uh, Brighton PSC fought a battle and we won it because their pickets blocked up the shop, ironically, so no one could get through anyway. And so they were completely empty every Saturday, the major shopping days. So basically, SodaStream just pulled the shop, and the Zionists in Brighton were really disappointed because
What were the Zionists like that long ago? Because Brighton's got a reputation now for the Zionists out there. What were they like then? Have they got stronger or what?
no, they haven't got stronger. If anything, they were stronger then. They mobilized people from the synagogue on the grounds it was a Jewish shop that was being attacked, etc., etc. And they were getting 40, 50 people there, and we were just about able to match them. But they were quite violent. I mean, I was arrested. Uh, it was an Israeli Zionist. He made quite filthy remarks about people. He was really weird, and he used to come across. The police had a dividing line between the anti-Zionists and the Zionists, and he would dance across and then kick people. So I moved forward and just punched him in the throat. Unfortunately, I was too weak to actually land much force behind the punch, but the
Oh,
police were going to charge me, but I was basically too ill to stand trial. So they had to
oh.
drop it. Simon Natas from ITN Solicitors handled it very well. Good Jewish anti-Zionist.
All right. So you've had, I didn't know you raised your fists at all, Tony. I didn't expect that. Anyway, look, here's one. This is number two in your top 10 viewed most times. Second most viewed is feminist silence over Ahed Tamimi exposes the racist consensus at the heart of Western feminism.
Oh
Show
yes,
trial and jail looms for 16-year-old Palestinian girl for defending herself. I haven't got a date on that one, but
it was
what do you
about.
make of that?
She was a wonderful young kid in this Palestinian village, and I can't remember its name, Tamimi. And the Israeli soldiers came into her family garden, and she got furious with them, and she slapped them around the face, and they didn't know what to do. And there were calls for her to be raped in the Israeli press, including by a journalist, Ben Caspit, who is supposed to be a moderate, supposed for a Zionist, he is a moderate. But she was arrested, and in the end, she was given 9 months in prison for slapping an armed Israeli soldier. And it was such a farce, but there was a massive campaign in her support. She became an absolute hero. And she did a degree, I think, at London University in the end. A wonderful kid, a really, really principled what girl. But again, she has been the target of Israeli repression. I mean, her father was arrested, tortured, and so on, and he was as solid as anyone. So, I mean, she represented the best of Palestinian resistance. Uh, and it was a big, big campaign, and women here were saying, "Oh, it's not a feminist issue," as if feminism can somehow avoid the question of imperialism. So I put that blog out, and it got 100,000 hits.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting story. I didn't know that one. Now we're coming to your number one, Tony. Are you ready for your number one here?
Yeah.
This is this is your number one viewed blog. Winston Churchill, a mass murderer to whom history was very kind.
Well,
I'm
that's right. I mean, the only advantage over Adolf Hitler was he killed less than Hitler. I mean, that was his main claim to fame, or it should have been. But Churchill, although they've made a myth about his legacy and tradition, when I lived in Wales and I was a child, he was hated because he brought the police in to shoot the miners at Tony Pandy. The working class, I've seen film in 1945. They booed him when he compared the Labour Party to the Gestapo. He wasn't popular with the working class at the time when he was actually in politics. They've built this myth around Churchill. One of these other myths, just like the myth of the suffragettes being non-violent, peaceful, law-abiding, etc. They just weave these myths into our history, and people often fall for it. But Churchill was a ruling class politician. He came into politics to defend the British Empire, and he resigned in, I think it was 1931, because he opposed any concession to Indian self-government. I mean, concessions were made, provincial self-government, but that was too much for Churchill. He believed the British Empire should rule, and he went into the war to defend the empire, not for any anti-fascist reasons. So he put neo-Nazis back in charge in Greece, for example, because the communists were the main adversary. So, I mean, there were many myths around Churchill, and of course, people today believe them. Unless, like in Wales, they still have that memory of what Churchill actually did to the working class.
right. Well, that's an interesting mix of your top 10. And as I say, you've written 3,500 blogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Incredible. And you just written one more last night, and the link's gone out to talk about your case. Now,
yeah.
there's some people who've got their hands up. I'll just take some of these, and then I'm going to move on to
Sure.
pay tribute to David Halpin. And then after that, I think because Rob's not on the call, we can do your music after the helping. Is that can you stay on for that, Tony?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, Byron, you've had your hand up for longer than the show. Are you still there, Byron? Maybe that's the okay. Byron's gone. Naomi, Naomi, what would you like to say?
Oh, hi. Hang on. Let me get my picture up. Look, I just want to reinforce everything that was said by Huda and Lubna and Ronnie in particular, and Rada about Tony, except one little quibble with Rada. She said that Tony had got away with it, and that's something I don't think we should. A phrase that we should use. You didn't do anything wrong. You were correctly supporting a resistance movement, and you brilliantly explained why that is a humane and legitimate position to take. And I think it's a lesson to us all the way you put that argument. Um, because we are going to have to continue to educate the public to keep this movement going, to protect our right to say these things, because that is seriously under threat. People are going to jail, and more people will unfortunately almost certainly go to jail under the unjust system. So we've got to defend the right to. I was so impressed. I was so pleased to be with Crispin and others in the public gallery on the Wednesday. I'm sorry I couldn't get there more often. And so I witnessed the things that Crispin was talking about when the judge sent the jury out and made these arguments, which honestly, everybody who didn't have the privilege of being there, she was working together with the prosecution. It was so obvious, wasn't it, Crispin? And obviously, Tony,
Yeah.
you heard it too. I mean, one shouldn't be shocked at these things anymore, but my God, it was blatant and it was a revelation. One thing I want to tell everybody that impressed me about being there, every time I go to an event in support of Tony, I meet loads of people who I didn't know before. Where are all these friends? He's got all these friends, these people who come out, who have obviously known him for years, worked with him for years, involved in fantastic projects like the Children's Centre that I only recently heard of. So Tony is a phenomenon, despite his many faults, which he and I joked with each other about. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh God, no, just the importance of keeping up the kind of arguments that Tony makes in the way he made them in that speech, because we know the jury proved to us that we're right when we say normal
Yeah.
people in their millions understand what's going on in Palestine, and when they understand it, they support they're on the right side of history. The problem is a lot of people don't know because of the ruling class propaganda, which lines up with Israel at every turn. A lot of people believe the lies. A lot of people think, oh yes, just a bunch of terrorists. Israel has to be defended. Lots of people still believe that. So we need to take inspiration from Tony and his way of explaining it in that blog, in that speech. I think that the intemperate nature of some of the blogs doesn't do justice to your arguments often, Tony. I've heard
All
people
right.
today saying, oh, well, I was fully in sympathy with him, but now he's gone and attacked that poor judge. I'm thinking, well, I was there. I saw what she was like. She deserved it. But you know what I mean. Anyway, it's great that you had lots of friends to help you craft that speech
Mm.
with your knowledge and your experience and your ability to express yourself, and other people helping you refine it. Brilliant work. Thanks ever so much, Tony.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you,
Naomi.
Naomi.
We've got Sabi got his hand up.
Thank
Would you like to
you.
say, Sabi?
Thank you, Crispin. I'll try not to repeat what everyone has said, although I entirely agree and absolutely delighted that with the outcome of Tony's trial. And I just want to say, if Tony had been convicted, no one would have been safe. It would have represented a threat to all the progressive people in British society, all the progressive campaigns and institutions. None of us would have been safe. The trade unions wouldn't have been safe. Um, Women's rights would have been possibly under threat. Gay people, everyone would have been potentially threatened with this, with a possible conviction. So Tony's victory is not only a victory for him personally, although I'm delighted, like everybody, with the outcome, but it's a victory for all progressive people, all progressive campaigns and institutions in British society and beyond. I want to say just one other thing about Israel-Palestine. I think we need an urgent debate. We all support Palestinian freedom. We all hate Israel. We have to understand, though, where it's coming from and how it represents. I think Tony made this point, and it's an important point. Israel, Zionism, is an aberration from the real Jewish historical tradition. Jews historically, from biblical times, were traders, travelers, itinerant merchants. They therefore developed an international orientation, international tradition, which we see in the 20th century with so many radical movements, so many revolutionaries and radicals who were Jewish. Zionism represents an aberration from that tradition. And if I may permit it a brief plug, it's all highlighted in my forthcoming book, The Jewish Question Revisited, which will be published in October. So it's a victory for all of us. Also, we need to finally point, we need an urgent debate about how Palestine can be free. We all support Palestinian freedom, but you know, solidarity is fantastically important in keeping Palestinian spirits lifted. But Palestinians can't liberate themselves. This is an important point. They're not like Israel is not like South Africa. Israel is worse than South Africa. I think Ronnie would agree with this. See, the black working class in South Africa had economic power. They were employed by the system. They were exploited. But because they were exploited, they had power. The Palestinians were not employed by Zionism. Zionism expelled the Palestinians. So they need allies. And we need an urgent debate how we can help to build alliances in the Arab world in particular, and I think Gada has an important point to make about this, alliances in the Arab world, a recreation of the Arab Spring of 2011, which gave us all such hope, but which was finally defeated. How can we help to recreate an Arab Spring Mark II, so you know, to really build Palestinian future Palestinian freedom in the future. But once again, solidarity with Tony, delighted with the outcome. Let's all continue the fight. Thanks very much for calling me.
Thank you, Savvy. Now I'm going. What a brilliant guy! A bit like you, Tony. I'd say. He wouldn't stop saying what was wrong and speaking out. I think the David Kelly thing was very interesting. The fact that his phone was clearly bugged. I mean, when I phoned him up, you could hear it. And I tried to Zoom with him, and it didn't work. And he said it's high voltage. Well, I mean, David Kelly's case, we've got to keep going. I mean, he's not here now. We should keep pushing for an inquiry into it because it will expose so much, won't it, David Kelly's case?
Yeah, I mean, the Liberal MP for Lewis, whose name slips my mind.
Oh, yeah.
He specialised in that. He became a Home Office minister, in fact, under the coalition. But yeah, it was very suspicious. He couldn't have died from slitting his wrists. So the question is, how did he die? And of course, Blair was up to his neck in it because he'd been attacked. It was Andrew Gilligan, and he was attacked by Alistair Campbell at one of the House of Commons committee meetings for what he'd said. And
it proves it. If someone is bumped off by the state, it does really. It would be such a telling thing to be exposed, wouldn't it? On that issue as well. I mean.
Yeah,
the way Blair's going around like he's some kind of saint, and he's been given a position in the House of Lords, and he's got away with all that stuff. I mean,
well,
I think
if they ever find me and they say it's suicide, I can assure you that's the one thing I will never do. So
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, that is a concern, isn't it? So we'll know that it's not that.
Yes.
Now I'm going to move on to your top 5 songs, and then we'll speak to you, Francis and Abe, at the end. Okay? All right. Okay. Look, Francis, you can talk now if you like, but I think if you want to hear Tony's top 5 songs, put your hands up. We'll do some kind of emotion thing, or if you, anyone? No. Oh, there's a few. Oh, look, I think there's quite a few. We'll come to you, Francis, after the songs, right? So look, I've prepared these for you, Tony. You said what they were in the pub after the verdict. So I've got them here. This is your song, the first song that you mentioned. And then if you could just tell me a bit about the background to why you like this song, would be quite interesting. Here we are. This is the first song. Right, so, Tony, that's the Beatles. I believe from the court, I heard you in Liverpool for some of your childhood. Is that?
I was, yeah, but
it was actually.
It was in Coventry that Beatlemania, when I lived in Coventry, that Beatlemania took off about 1962. And for me, that is the perfect single. That was the best ever. It had everything in it. And it was the first single I bought, 6 shillings and 8 pence, 1/3 of a pound. And I bought that, She Loves You, Please Please Me, and I think Can't Buy Me Love, all around the same time. And Beatlemania just swept the world. I mean, it was just amazing. And it was my first introduction to, if you like, popular music, and it was just incredible. And I say I was only a young child, but everyone was just taken aback by the breath of fresh air that the Beatles represented. That was one of the best memories.
Okay, so here's your number 2 that you mentioned in the pub after the trial. This is, here we are. I'll play it and then you. Right now, Tony, that's Sinead O'Connor. What's your reason for choosing that one?
It's a beautiful song, and it's a metaphor for English domination of Ireland through a love affair with an Englishman. And it brings tears to my eyes, and I wept when I heard that Sinead had died. She was so brave, and only Chris Christopherson stood up for her after she'd attacked the Pope, quite rightly so. She was just a wonderful, wonderful woman. What more can I say about her? She was a living legend.
Okay. What we'll do is at the end of the show, because Rob's not put in a song, we'll choose one of the top 5 to play it out in full. So I'll just play short versions of these, right? This is your third choice, which is got an Irish sound to it again. So Tony, what's behind the choice there? The Pogues.
Well, firstly, I love the Pogues. I love their music, and that song in particular. And of course, I'm not a man you will meet every day. Could be said about me, so it fits, and I'd like it to be played at my funeral. Not now, but eventually when I pass away.
What, should we invite the judge?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, right. We won't invite the judge then. Right. So the next one is it's the Beatles, and I think you said John Lennon. I think it's the Beatles. It's Across the Universe. Now, Tony, that's Beatles a bit later on.
It is.
Bit sort of dope smoking sort of thing. What's with your choice of that one?
Well, first it was written by my hero John Lennon, who tragically was murdered. The tune, it's so beautiful. I think it came from the underrated Let It Be album, the last Beatles album, and I just think it's a magnificent song, and I just love it.
Okay. All right. So this is your 5th choice. I'm gonna play, and this is
I have one more, by the way, which I'd like to mention.
I can't do that now, I'm afraid. You're too late.
I'll just mention it, that's all.
Okay. All right, okay. Here's your last one. Right. So Bob Dylan, getting a bit of flack for Bob Dylan there. You must have seen that. What's your response to that?
I haven't seen the flack, but it's proof that an artist can sometimes be at variance with the message of their own music. Bob Dylan was the poet and the songwriter for the civil rights movement and the March on Washington. And that was from what I think is his best album, Blonde on Blonde. And the words and the poetry are just simply amazing. Visions of Joanna. Unfortunately, he became very reactionary and an arch-Zionist at one time as well, and a Christian evangelist and so on. But his music stands out. I mean, I think he is the most brilliant songwriter that there's ever been. And I don't think you can take that away from him. It's just like Salvador Dali. He was a fascist, a supporter of Franco, but his art is independent in a way of his politics. And we shouldn't be Stalinist about this and say that art must be politically correct at all times and the artist must be politically correct. Sometimes people are brilliant, but their politics are lousy. And that was true of Bob Dylan.
So have you seen him live?
Yep. I've seen him live about 4 times, including at Blackbush, a concert about 30 to 40 years ago. I saw him most recently at Swansea on his last tour, and I was incredibly disappointed. I saw him with my son Tom, and he just drawled through everything. He didn't acknowledge the audience. He couldn't sing, and he should retire now and not go on with his endless tours. He's past his best. He's no longer a good songwriter. But at the time, when he was at his peak, he was the greatest songwriter. I just mentioned 2 other songwriters. One was Paul Simon, the boxer and so on. He captured me. The other is someone you may not have heard of, Gordon Lightfoot, who was a Canadian national folk singer. And his song, If You Could Read My Mind, I think stands out as one of the classics of all time. And just one other, John Prine, also an American songwriter, brilliant, Paradise and other songs by him will also, I think, stand. He died of COVID, tragically, but all those three are part of my formative influences, which is folk
Wow.
rock, really.
So, yeah, just the context on this for people saying, why are we doing this, is that Tony Greenstein, who I'm speaking to at the moment, he could have been locked up in a prison for 14 years. And before I knew whether he would be locked up in a prison for 14 years, I thought it might be good if we could hear some music. He could play some music. We could then think about Tony and put that out there, that this is the music for Tony while he's in prison. But Tony's not in prison, but why can't we do that anyway? Why do people only have to be acknowledged if they've gone to prison? Let's stop that. Let's acknowledge people before they go to prison or when they're not in prison. Can we just try and do that and not say, why are we doing this? Because he's not in prison. And everyone else here who's on the call, I love you all because you're not in prison as well. And those who are in prison, we love you too. But you can't hear this. You're not on the call. Francis, you're not in prison. What would you like to say? I'm unmuting you. There you are.
Yes, I'm a bit shocked that I've got, and maybe others too have got left to after the discussion has finished. I just want to say, firstly, that I think that there should be some open and clear support for the opposition in Israel, which is not safe and which is there. Whether we like it or not, there's an opposition in Israel. I am an anti-Zionist Jew and have been for a long time. I can't bear it, but I think that some understanding of the context and form of the state of Israel is still needed. The revenge, for me, Israel embodies a kind of appropriation of and revenge for the Holocaust. I think it's appalling. But nevertheless, there are things you don't agree, Tony. That's fine. I'd love to debate it. But my family comes from the Middle East and we're all Arabic speakers. And I know who is being ignored in these in the accounts of what is going on in Israel and who is not being noted. I do think we should be able to have a discussion, and that is why I wish I wasn't on right at the very end of this, because I'd love to talk to Tony about it.
Yeah, but hold on, if I put you on earlier, then it would have totally taken away from the music. I couldn't have fitted it in.
The music to me is relatively irrelevant compared
but it's
to
more a
what's going on with my
celebration of
relatives.
Tony. This
You're
is
being
more a
bumped
celebration
off.
of Tony. It's more a
I
celebration
love
of
Tony.
Tony.
I love
Sorry,
Tony.
that's all I'm saying.
I think he's brilliant, and I have nothing whatsoever against him. I think he's excellent, and what he has said today has been marvelous. I'm just saying how I feel. My childhood language was Arabic. My family had been exiled from the Middle East and had gone first to Egypt and then to Manchester, where they bellowed in Arabic a great deal. I think that we should be clearer and stronger about the opposition in Israel, and we need maybe speakers on this and to do it properly. I think
But I mean, that's another show, isn't it? We could
yes,
do
it's
that.
another
So,
show.
Tony, what would you like to say in response then?
Two things. Firstly, I support the opposition in Israel, but it's minute. The anti-Zionist opposition is 1% at best.
Yes, it is minute.
Secondly, it is a real mistake to say that what Israel doing is a product of the Holocaust. For the first 20 years, Israel ignored the Holocaust. Ben-Gurion refused to attend any Holocaust memorial. It only came in reaction to the Kastner trial where the Zionist collaboration came out. What they're having is not a Holocaust trauma, but a settler colonial trauma, the same trauma that slave owners had at the fear that the black slaves would rise up against them. The Holocaust was weaponized as an ideological weapon quite deliberately in order to cover and apologize and justify the atrocities. The Holocaust victims would not have approved. Most of those who died in the Holocaust were not Zionists. They were Poland in 1938, the last three elections in Warsaw, out of 20 council seats, the anti-Zionist Bund won 17. The Zionists just won. Every major city, bar Lvov, the Bund won the majority. And with Polish Socialist Party, they had a majority on the councils. Of course, that was wiped out by the Nazis. That's why Israel refuses even to recognize the Bund as a genuine Jewish tradition, because it's in the antithesis of what Israel is. The Bund said, Jews fight oppression, we side with the oppressed. Whereas Israel, of course, is the oppressor. They've appropriated the Holocaust, but it doesn't belong to them. And that's why all the Holocaust memorial organizations, they fight against any association between what happened in the Holocaust and what's happening today in Gaza. So it's a settler colonial trauma.
Yeah.
See my article in Electronic Intifada on that.
Thank you very much. I think
Yeah.
that we should actually do this, Crispin, and cover it in some detail. I think it's quite important because there are plenty of Middle Eastern Jews who never thought of a state of Israel as such at all.
Yeah,
And my family
absolutely.
didn't. They lived in Didsbury in Manchester and shouted very loudly in Arabic and never thought ever of going to live in the Middle East. They'd
Yeah.
left. It was nothing to do with them, and they were not interested particularly in the state of Israel. And I think we
Zionism.
need, yes,
Zionism was a Christian idea. The
yes,
Jewish return, which was an anti-Semitic
right,
idea, because it meant that Jews didn't belong where they were. And the Bund
yes,
idea was here, where we are. That's where
yes.
we stand and fight. And
Shall we do? Should we do a meet up on this,
yeah,
Crispin?
Well, I'll look at. I'll think about what we can do, but I'd
Please.
like to move on. So thank you,
Yes, a general
Francis.
one. Thank you
Yeah,
very much, and thanks,
thank you.
Tony.
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Francis.
Right, I'm gonna Abe. Good to see you. Not seeing you. Can you hear me? All right. You all
Yes,
right?
I can hear you. Hello.
Good.
Well, I put a lot of stuff on the chat, but I really want to say, sort of on a personal level, that my wife, my darling late wife, Rosamine, and I were always ardent supporters of Tony for years. I would say for decades. And especially when a lot of the activist groups actually reviled him, and I mean, they welcomed what he said, but, they couldn't bear his straight talking and actually his encyclopedic knowledge, as he's just displayed. He's just an amazing receptacle of history and arguments. And, he's been just amazing. And I just want to say to Tony that everything was vindicated in this incredible speech that he gave, which it was on so many levels, on literary levels, on eloquence, on the way he delivered it, and the knowledge, and bringing in all the threads and the controversial things. He smashed, all those barriers in that one speech, which I think will actually, it'll be analyzed, sort of historically. It's almost a literary masterpiece. And so I just want to, congratulate Tony. And it vindicates everything that we've sort of always felt about him. And we've got to use that speech. It's a kind of a landmark. It's a watershed, which we should not evade using to actually break all the barriers. The Terrorism Act, the definition of what terrorism is, the prescription, the use, the censorship. We could use it as a real tool to turn the tide, to get the legal aspects looked at again, to take the government to court. There's enough in the ICJ rulings, international law, to actually take legal action against the government, and to get all these the arrests of people who were making remarks about and analyzing direct action Palestine. If we can use this as a real landmark decision to turn the tide on what we've been suffering. The Israel lobby, which is the whole of the Western governments, are the Israel lobby. And we've got to start, fighting back and smash, this whole glass ceiling, as it were. And I really want to compliment Tony, and it vindicates everything that we've thought about him. And we should now all give him every support. The Green Party, and get Tony's thoughts and words, published. We should have him on Desert Island Disc, certainly. I mean,
Well, I've tried, and people were saying, "Oh, I don't want to hear any more of his music."
No. John Prine, John Prine. That was my wife and myself's favorite singer, actually. All his songs, and it's nice to see that Tony, really liked him.
Right, so you share good tastes then, right?
So
okay.
Anyway, all the best, Tony. More power to your elbow. And we've got to use this as a landmark, and great, fight back, and la luta continua, as they say.
Yep.
Thank you, Abe. Good to see you. Not heard you on here before. Good to see you. And Roshan, who was at the trial.
Yep.
How you doing, Roshan?
Hi, Roshan.
I'm still smiling big and wide 48 hours after the thing. So I really want to, in fact, you'll be very happy, Crispin, to hear my contribution is going to be very short. I want to boil it down to those two most beautiful words we heard in the 4 days, which was not guilty. And I want to also add that, Tony, you took us through two other words, the agony and the ecstasy. I mean, the agony, the tension, the apprehension was really almost unbearable for us who were watching. I can't believe what you must have been going through. So that's all I want to say. Agony and beautiful ecstasy, and let's build on that ecstasy to take us to a free Palestine.
Thank you, Roshan, and thank you for attending as well.
Thank you.
Good.
I actually wrote that the best words. Some of the best words you said were, "I need a toilet break." I thought that was a very important decision after the prosecution.
That was tactical.
Speech. It was a brilliant move, because I thought your speech, you're going to try and read it out. If you read it out as it was, it wouldn't direct what she just said. But you said you needed a toilet break, and then you had time to work it out. It's brilliant. So look, Margaret Owens, our last contributor, and then you've got to work out which of the 5 songs you want me to play the whole of, Tony. While Margaret Owens on here. Are you there, Margaret? She's got a hand up, but
here I am.
Okay.
And I just want to say, Tony, the whole world is listening to your speech, and I'd be very, very quick. But what you also exposed is the appalling defects in our justice system. I'm a barrister. I'm 94 years old. I went to the bar over 70 years ago, believing that in this country we had a fair and independent justice system. And Tony, you've exposed how absolutely despicable and wretched it is. And so many lawyers in this country are disgusted and ashamed. And I think it's time that the Bar Council did something about it. And the judge, that horrible woman judge that you had, Judge Foskett, I mean, how dare she even contemplate that you were in contempt of court because of the way you addressed the jury. Tony, all over the world, we are so grateful to you and your wonderful, wonderful speech. I was there for you last Monday. I couldn't make it on Friday. How I wish I'd been there to cheer and hug you. Thank you very much indeed. You've done something incredible, and the whole world is grateful to you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. Good to see you there. All right, Tony, now that it's come to 1 o'clock now, we're half an hour over. It's not too bad. Sometimes it's been a bit later than that. If anyone's not watched this show before, we always go a bit over. Tony, what's your song that you want me to play to finish the show on?
Sinead O'Connor's Rebel Song.
Okay. Well, look, before I play the song, I just want to say it was great to see you win this court case, Tony. I was really worried, and a lot of people have said it, but it was fantastic. And do you know what I love about you is that you speak your mind, and you can't be faulted for that. We all know where you stand because there's no way you're hedging your bets. You're not spinning anything. We know who you are. And you're at liberty to do another blog and more Twitter posts. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. And please share. Please share as well.
I will.
Everyone should share. And that's what Tony was in trouble for. The words "please share" in some way is an incitement to support a terrorist organization.
I know.
Well, it isn't. But anyway, look, I'm going to play your choice, and then I'll unmute everyone, and everyone can say something to Tony.